Finding time for photography can sometimes be a real struggle. Life often gets in the way. In my case, life getting in the way amounted to a need to refurbish a new house and to try and tame an overgrown garden. That left me with relatively small amount of free time, and so opportunities to fit in photography were fairly limited. The resolution to this problem was to try and maximise the opportunities to take pictures while I was out on my daily dog walks. The dog needed to be walked come rain or shine, and so if I could take the opportunity to take pictures on these walks, then it would give me an hour to an hour and a half a day to take pictures that simply wouldn't be available any other way. The problem with fitting in photography with dog walks is it really rules out the possibility of using tripods. It makes use of filters difficult, and it certainly gives a big advantage to using zooms rather than prime lenses, because juggling lenses on a dog lead can be a bit of a pain. So in this short video, what I'm going to do is try to illustrate some of the pictures that I've taken on my dog walk using a relatively small micro four thirds camera. I have higher end gear, but the problem is on my dog walk it's just not feasible to use it. So this gives me the opportunity to practice my skills and also to exactly find out what the limits are of a relatively low-end camera system. The pictures I'm showing here were all taken at Croom Court, now owned by the National Trust. This parkland was originally designed by Capability Brown. It represents 750 acres of parkland with a number of architectural features, which gives a range of photographic opportunities. And there's no point denying having this on the doorstep greatly improves the opportunities I have to take interesting photos. Combine this with dog walks taken in all weathers throughout the year means that I combine interesting opportunities with interesting light. And hopefully the pictures that I'm showing here will illustrate that fairly clearly. Now, this isn't a video about gear, but I think it's probably helpful to just say a few words about what I used to take these pictures, which basically was a Lumix GX1, bought second hand about 12 months ago, and I'm using that with a 12 to 32mm kit lens. Although it's 6 years old, the GX1 does have image stabilization. So what I'm really losing out with compared with perhaps a newer model is the dynamic range advantages of a more modern sensor. But hopefully the images that I'm showing here will demonstrate that it is possible to capture images with a reasonably wide dynamic range, even without using a tripod and resorting to blending images. A well-known photographer was once asked what advice he would give to an aspiring landscape photographer. The answer was, get out more, but take less. By going out with my dog, I'm forced to go out every day. But again, by having a dog and having to control the dog, possibly having the dog on a lead, it restricts my ability to take pictures, so I end up taking less. In the just under a year that I've had the GX1, I've only taken about 500 pictures that I've saved. Typically I go out in a day, the most pictures I'll take is 10, 15. Very often just one or two. So the images here that I'm presenting are what I've collected with that camera in about a year. And they represent some of the better ones, not necessarily the best ones, but they do hopefully illustrate the range of capabilities of the camera. I'm going to conclude this video by just saying a few more words about image quality. Now, the pictures I've shown here, as I said before, are taken with a 16 megapixel camera. And for many years, I was constrained by the view that it wasn't really worth going out taking landscape photographs unless I had equipment that would enable me to print out large prints at high quality. Call that the tyranny of the technical. And that's reinforced by the sorts of information you see on a lot of internet vlogs and websites, stressing that you really ideally need high-end full-frame cameras, you need high-end tripods. and you see headlines like 3 essential lenses for landscape photography, or the ultimate landscape photography lens. Well, I don't have those lenses, I don't have that gear, and so by that criteria the pictures I've shown here have no value, and I like to think that's nonsense. There are limitations quite clearly to the size that I can print things out with the gear that I've used to take the pictures in this video, but they really aren't that constraining. With a little bit of interpolation in a frame with a small amount of matting, those images will print out perfectly adequately at A2 size, and I rarely, if ever, need to print out images larger than that. So it would be great to have higher end gear, but what are the consequences of that? As I said before, this is making time for photography, and I go out every day with a camera. Camera sits in my pocket until it's needed. If I had a heavy tripod, if I had a heavy gear, some days I just wouldn't decide to go out. And so it comes back to the best camera is the camera you've got with you, providing it will give the quality that you need. And in this case, I feel that the quality that I can achieve is acceptable. So what I like to suggest is that don't be put off by the gear you've got because you haven't got that essential landscape lens, or you haven't got that full frame camera. Chances are that the images you're able to capture with virtually any camera that was made in the last 10 years that is capable of capturing images in RAW format is going to be able to produce images suitable for use on social media, in vlogs, and also on stock imaging sites. Now, the pictures I've shown here are all taken at a National Trust property, so their rules prevent me from putting those images on a stock images site. So what I do to give them value is I basically gift those images to the National Trust, and they're used on Croom's website, they're used on social media, and more recently some of them are going on the National Trust's own stock image site. So those images have value. And it's quite interesting that where I put or have images of mine appear on the National Trust social media, the sorts of feedback I get is very different to the sort of feedback that I get on photography sites, say like 500px. And I think the difference is the photography sites, people are interested in photography. For people who look at things like the National Trust site, they're more interested in the picture and possibly something that would give them a record of a day out, or some environment that they enjoyed visiting. So there isn't very much a difference, and I think if you concentrate very much on social media, particularly photography focused social media, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So to conclude, I would encourage you, if you've got gear that is perhaps not at the highest end, go out anyway. Take the opportunities to take the pictures, and don't be afraid to consider using them on stock imaging sites if the copyright issues allow, and possibly approach charities to see if they have any value to charitable organisations. So it means that your pictures don't just sitting fading away on your hard drive, but you're actually achieving some value for them and possibly getting some positive feedback, which is going to encourage you to do more. Of course, if you go down the commercial route and you make a bit of money, it may well be that that will actually fund the acquisition of the high-end gear that all the experts tell you you need. So, something to think about.